Hello and welcome to the Go Narrative Weekly Story Stream. And I've got great news for you today. If you are a product marketer or an entrepreneur, we are streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, no longer Facebook. That channel is now dead to us. That's right. But I've got great news for you today because we are going to cover how you can increase demand and accelerate your sales pipe by using business storytelling. And as a product marketer, making that bridge from the product out into the market in a way that is compelling, that is easy for your marketing organization to understand, easy for your sales organization to understand, easy for your partners to understand. That's right. So you might be struggling with all those things today, but after the next hour, you are going to be able to walk away with some tools to improve that experience for yourself moving forward. And who doesn't want to have a better experience, right? We're all searching for that every single day. Okay, so business storytelling, right? I say business storytelling for a reason. I don't say entertainment storytelling. We're not going to be talking about entertainment storytelling today. That's right. And you know why? Because entertainment storytelling was designed for one specific goal: pure entertainment. Now, stories are entertaining, of course, but we can put them to use in business in an entertaining way that is for business and not for pure entertainment. Besides, if you're doing entertainment storytelling, you're going to have to go and learn the hero's journey, which is 10, 12, 17 steps. Go and geek out on the Pixar storytelling tips. Learn about the monomyth and do all this other stuff, which of course I've gone through all that stuff, so you don't have to, because what we've done is we put something together for you for business. Now, don't worry if you are completely new to this space, because we have got something for two types of people today: complete noobs who have never tried to apply storytelling to business. You're going to get a head start on that today. And if you happen to be a natural born storyteller, you are going to get some tools today to help you tell business stories in a way that connects deeply to your business. And the secret that we're going to be sharing today is storytelling for action. So stick around. You're going to learn all about what storytelling for action is and how to apply it in your business. Now, as a marketer and entrepreneur myself, and having spent an enormous amount of time in product marketing at companies like Intel and Microsoft, I know how much frustration there can be in business running this business now myself. I know there's 1,000,001 things that you've got to worry about. And for over 20 years in corporate America, I held a variety of marketing roles. So I feel your pain. I know the plates. I know the balls you're juggling, the plates you're spinning. And for the past 5 years in Go Narrative, I've been leading the charge where our mission is to spread the word of storytelling in business and to help you as a product marketer or an entrepreneur get attention, be heard, and sell more. Now, for years, and even as a passionate storyteller, I actually struggled to apply storytelling in business. Now, is it because there's so much to manage? Maybe, but there's also this kind of disconnect between storytelling in entertainment and storytelling in business. So we're going to cover that today, and we're going to give you the tools to navigate it. Now, you also might think, as a busy business person, as a busy marketer, you got to worry about all these different channels, and it is intimidating, right? There's a lot of channels out there, but you don't have to worry about all these. In fact, could you even learn about all these? I'll give you a month to try to figure all this out, and I'll come back and I'll test you, and you probably would fail. I certainly would. There's just too many channels. So if you can get your storytelling right, it doesn't matter which of these channels you go for, you will have something magical. And that is a message that connects and resonates and moves people to act. And that's what we all want in business, is to get people to act, get people to invest in us, get people to buy our products. Now, like many of you, I once thought that storytelling was reserved for movies, books, and theater. And while I've always appreciated good storytelling, my career was built through science and technology, and I didn't think that stories had much to do with those fields at all. But over time, I've come to learn that stories prop up everything, not just in business, for businesses of all sizes, but everything in life, everything about how we perceive the world, everything about how we go out into the world, communicate and interact with other people. And of course, seeing as business is still human to human, connecting, engaging with other humans still is important. So if there was a way to do that better, maybe that would be something that you'd be interested in learning about. So anyway, my mother was a scientist, a zoologist, and virologist. scientist to the core, but also incredibly creative. She was a poet and an author. My father is kind of similar. He had an electrical engineering degree and ended up spanning 5 decades in high tech at Intel and in sales and marketing. So, science background, engineering background, and then moving into the sales and marketing arts, if you will. And he inadvertently indoctrinated me into the world of Silicon Valley. By the way, this is a classic book. If you want to learn about all the stories that were happening around the edges of the main stories that you've probably already heard about the formation of Silicon Valley, with people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates spilling from Silicon Valley up to the Pacific Northwest coast, there's a lot of really fun stories in there and some rather naughty ones as well. So you probably get some enjoyment out of that. My parents also were voracious readers to us. And I have this great memory of sitting curled up on the sofa with my dad and one of my sisters as he read us The Lord of the Rings. And this is the actual copy, my mum's 1969 copy of Lord of the Rings, tattered and dog-eared. But the first time all the books were published in one, and still have this book today. It's a real treasure for me. So I took all of these bits and pieces, the science, the engineering, the creativity, the writing, and I started a career in Intel's marketing department, channel marketing actually at the time. And if there's any Red Dwarf fans in the audience, you'll recognize Rimmer here from Red Dwarf. And this was from a Counter-Strike gaming event that I helped organize at the Science Museum in London. So I was starting to get into storytelling even before I even realized it. But I still, in those early days, I saw storytelling as something that would be useful for presentations, right? Maybe ad campaigns. I didn't realize the true depth and power and usefulness, quite frankly, of storytelling across the whole business. Now, in those early days as well, I became obsessed with Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm. It was a popular read at Intel and really helped Intel navigate the 80s and the 90s in a really profound way. But the main thing about Crossing the Chasm that I want you to take away is that the businesses that succeed cross the chasm and connect with the most profitable market, and that's the early majority. And what are stories all about? Stories are about connecting people to ideas and moving people to act. So it becomes no surprise that storytelling is a useful tool to crossing the chasm. Now, if you want to stay in the innovators and early adopter space and not make all the money that's available to you out there, be my guest. But if you want to make the absolute optimal amount that you can for your business, you're going to have to cross that chasm, and you're going to need some tools to do it. And it just so happens that we're talking about one of those tools today, and I'm excited to share it with you. So in my early career, I started getting into storytelling without even realizing it. And granted, I'd written my first science fiction novel and was working on my second one and keeping a daily handwritten journal. But at work, I wasn't really pursuing storytelling, but I kind of fell into it anyway. This was an example from early campaign I ran. Here is another one, a really fun James Bond sales campaign that we ran. Eventually, these efforts led to me being tapped on the shoulder and invited to be chief storyteller for Microsoft Dynamics business division at Microsoft. And I was thrilled. I was actually just about to leave the company, but I stayed because this was an amazing opportunity. Wow, I thought it's official. I'm actually going to get paid to be a storyteller. Those novels can wait. And it was during this time that I discovered this big business secret, which I have been spending the best part of 8 years working on to develop to help you apply storytelling in business. And that is, the secret is, it's not entertainment storytelling, it's business storytelling. And if there's one thing you take away from today, it's there's two different types of storytelling that we're talking about. Entertainment for pure entertainment, for sitting back and enjoying it and being taken on a journey. And then there's business storytelling, which taps into all the power of storytelling and is still somewhat entertaining and engaging, but it's about business and it's about using this as a tool in business. And you can, and there's some great ways of doing it without having to worry about all the fancy approaches that exist within the entertainment industry. Now, when I was at Intel, a dear friend and mentor of mine, Nick Drew, said to me, this always is stuck in my mind. He said, never reinvent the wheel, right? Go and find somebody's invention, somebody's tool, somebody's framework that you can use, right? Because if you do that, you can just focus on doing what you're doing. Now, he was a sales guy, and this makes an enormous amount of sense for somebody in sales who's trying to optimize their time in very, very visceral ways based on how they're measured and compensated. But this is such great advice, and it really stuck with me. And when I started this role as chief storyteller, that was my initial reaction. Go find a wheel that somebody else has invented and then use that as a tool within our business. Now, I discovered that people had been trying to use it in business, and there was all sorts of attempts to use the entertainment story structures in business, but nobody had actually come up with a tool that could be used across all things in business with storytelling. And as a product marketer and spending a lot of time in product marketing, understanding the power of getting people to understand the products. And what was happening was people were falling into the chasm because they were trying to use entertainment-based storytelling and it just wasn't working. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't some great advice, and there still is some great pointed advice out there, like Nancy Duart's Resonate, really wonderful book for improving your presentations using storytelling, or Bo Easton's approach to investing in your personal brand and telling your personal story. And these were fine, but they weren't delivering that wheel I was looking for. And I just kept coming back. Even those examples, they really leaned into this idea of entertainment-based storytelling structures. And, phrases like rising and falling action and character arc, this is just, it's a whole world and wealth of knowledge that if you're a busy professional who's dealing with a whole long to-do list of stuff that just never seems to get done, you're not really going to want to add becoming an expert in entertainment storytelling to that list, unless it's like a hobby of yours, right? And that's kind of how I fell into it, because I was passionate about it and I kind of found my way to connect these things together. But most people aren't going to be in that situation, but they understand its value and they want to know how to use it. Now, one of the problems that exists with storytelling in business is what was coined by Chip and Dan Heath in their book, Made to Stick. And it's called the curse of knowledge. And that's exactly what happens. As you go deeper and deeper into a subject like storytelling, you start to become so much of an expert that people outside of the area of expertise don't understand what you're saying. And most of the storytelling coaches out there, even the ones who try to apply it in business, this is what happens. And it's why storytelling only ever gets so far, like helping with presentations, the storytelling wheels of frameworks that can be used across the business for business storytelling just weren't rolling. I couldn't find one. And so what did I do? Well, I focused on being a story interpreter. I recognized the fact there was this challenge, and I studied it, I understood it, and then I interpreted that and helped it for the business. And it was great. We developed some fantastic content. My team and I created some wonderful customer showcase content, telling the stories of our customers, these big epic stories that we used at events and in our advertising, all this kind of fantastic stuff. Collaboration across the product marketing teams, the Marcom teams, really fantastic. However, that was still falling into this trap of the sort of big, beautiful, epic story. But I knew that storytelling was so powerful, it could be used even just in a conversation. And I was passionate about trying to figure this out. And, like I mentioned, storytelling is about humans connect. And the last I checked, business is still human to human. And so we have an opportunity to connect even more deeply our ideas to others and ourselves to other people's. As I was learning about this, I felt I was just scratching the surface, and I wanted to do a lot more than just injecting storytelling into what I was doing. I saw what had happened with all these attempts to try and apply storytelling in business, and I wanted to do something different. I wanted to unlock this for you, especially as an entrepreneur or a product marketer who's got these fantastic, amazing ideas, is trying to understand the customers, is trying to understand the market, is trying to understand how the product fits with that, and then trying to understand how then take that to market, and working with agencies or Marcom teams, going out to, run ad campaigns, everything from ad campaigns down to ABM campaigns, right? And I wanted to figure a way to unlock that rather than just kind of sprinkling or injecting some storytelling into the picture. And I was excited about the opportunity to take this above and beyond what I was doing at Microsoft, but I was really intimidated to do so. As much as I would love to have left Microsoft and formed my own company, I had a young family at home. In fact, my wife was on a sabbatical from after the birth of our second child. Here he is. He's quite a lot older now, but at the time, that was an anchor that really stopped me from wanting to make that kind of big change in my life. Now, everything changed for me. July 19th, 2015, tragedy struck. My parents had both killed in a car crash. Now, I'm not going to go any further into that sad tale, but the fact that life is short was never more apparent to me. And unsurprisingly, this was a major turning point in my life. And I decided to up and leave Microsoft against this background of profound grief. What on earth was I thinking? Well, I figured out the best way to honor my parents, and that was by taking all that creativity, that science, that engineering, and working on establishing Go narrative so that I could put together these business storytelling frameworks so that you wouldn't have to. So you could pick them up and use them, and then we can go deeper and further than ever before with the power of business storytelling and transform how we think about product marketing by injecting storytelling deeply into its very essence. And the truth is, you don't have to check all those marketing boxes and go after all those fancy social media channels. What you need is better storytelling, because storytelling lights up everything. It takes the numbers and it makes them interesting. It takes the boring and it makes it interesting. It is an essential part of how we connect our ideas to other people. And with product marketers and entrepreneurs, you are in the crucible of trying to figure that out. And that's what we want to help you. So remember that misconception of storytelling, that it's just for children, movies and books. Remember, it's not. Those are just artifacts of what storytelling is really all about. And if some artifacts can be used for purely entertainment, some can be used for business engagement. And that's what this is all about. And when you apply it in the right way, your messaging is more authentic. You're more authentic. Your messaging is better. Your executives are more relatable. Your salespeople have increased confidence. You generate increased demand, and then you accelerate that pipe. And all of that can stem from the crucible of the product marketing organization, or as an entrepreneur, the importance of figuring out these core stories. And you figure that out, and everything that comes after it is going to benefit from it. And you'll create an alignment within your organization, whether it's small or big, like you would never dreamed of before. But those entertainment storytelling frameworks were the only thing out there, right? And if people wanted to try and use storytelling, that's all there was, or they had to kind of figure it out themselves. I want to save you that hassle. But even after the founding of Go Narrative, I relied on the existing frameworks. I continued to play that interpreter role, but we focused on this idea of a strategic messaging foundation, a go-to-market playbook that included some of those fundamentals of product marketing, and also that bridge into the outbound through the personas and the content models, alongside the value propositions, the positioning, messaging frameworks, and of course, the strategic narrative, which we started to inject into the package at an early state, even before we'd figured out what these frameworks look like. Selling this stuff was fantastic, and we still do it, and we love it today, and we made good money doing it. But the crown jewel we were still pursuing was business storytelling, how to unlock that. And that's exactly what we've done. And remember, literature and film have their own frameworks, but those are just artifacts of what storytelling truly is. They are not storytelling. And in fact, the word storytelling itself is a misnomer, right? That's why you'll hear me talk about story. And it's really about how this works and how this works in relation to how we interact with each other. So what is the opportunity available for all of us? It is making sense of the world and helping our customers make sense of us. And we all want that, don't we? So but without those practical frameworks, I had to keep being this story interpreter. And so I continued to do so. But as I practiced the art and the science of storytelling, the more I realized that storytelling and the idea of story was a value problem. And business is nothing if not about communicating and delivering value to make people's lives better. Now, for our ancestors, stories of value told around the campfire were things like which berries were edible, where the shelter was, where the lions were. Evolution did its thing and rewarded with survival the tribes that practiced this most useful of communications techniques, and that was storytelling. Now, of course, there's a few things people get wrong when they try going to storytelling, and I've discovered two cardinal sins, and this is two cardinal sins beyond the fact of trying to apply entertainment storytelling to business. The two cardinal sins of any type of application storytelling business. What is that first one? Well, that first one is not including people and their transformation. If it doesn't include that, it's not a story. I remember when I was at one of those companies I mentioned, one of that executive stood up on stage. It was his coming out party as CMO. He stood up, "We've got a great story." Everybody leaned in. So our products are fantastic. They're delivering the features our customers want, the SKUs and the pricing. Story? Anybody? Story? There was no story. And this was a CMO that we're talking about here. The presentation wasn't structured around story. There was maybe a couple of anecdotes sprinkled in or injected in, if you will, but that was it. And this was only one example that I was starting to see about people thought they knew what storytelling was. They thought they were using it. They would say, this is our story, and it would be a strategy or a product plan or whatever, right? But it wasn't a story, and it wasn't using these key tenets. And this why is very important. And language is important. Words are important. When this brand released in the UK in the 1990s, it caused quite a stir. French Connection UK is what it stands for. But what did you see, right? Don't say it's a story if it's not a story. You're not doing yourself or anybody any favors. The second sin that I have seen is kind of the opposite of that. If there's a head and a heart here, it's not including a what. It's not including an element of value. It's not including some facts or some data. Stories are actually vehicles for delivering that. That's the whole point of storytelling, delivering that value. So if you don't include those, all you're going to have is some fluffy thing, some maybe entertainment that isn't going to serve your business. It's not going to inspire your audience to go on a transformation to have a better life. Now, I mentioned the science of this. There's a lot going on in our brains. And when we hear a story, we actually simulate those events in our brains through mirror neurons and theory of mind. There's a whole bunch of complex stuff going on here. In fact, we haven't even figured it all out yet. There's a lot for us left to learn. But when we hear a story, we simulate it in our minds. And I love this quote from Jonathan Gottschall. A fiction is an ancient virtual reality machine that specializes in simulating human problems. And you know what? When you hear a story simulating a problem and the solution to it, that's the first time you get that idea to actually make that kind of change in your life or in your business. But as I discovered, it's really hard to apply those entertainment storytelling structures to business, kind of a triangle, peg, round hole kind of situation. You might get so far, but it's far from being a repeatable tool that you can use in your business every single day. And especially as an entrepreneur or product marketer that is trying to understand the market and how your customers thinking and what their experiences are and how you can feature your products that works for that and how you can talk about those features. What are the right features to talk about in the context of that story? And then how do you build that bridge out into actually creating content that goes above and beyond that core product marketing effort? So the dream was real. I discovered all this. I was learning about the science and I started to wonder, what if I could forge the frameworks for business? What if I could do that, right? Speaking of forges, my mother's earliest memory was her grandfather, my great-grandfather, taking her and her two sisters down into his smithy. He was a blacksmith. Under pain of death, should they tell my grandmother, their mother. He helped them lift up the hammer to make it crash down on the hot horseshoe on the anvil. The sparks flew, smoke filled the air. The tongs were raised and the horseshoe was thrust into the cold water to temper it. Then it was put back into the fire, heated up again, and the whole process was repeated. Forging things takes work. But even if you look at that, look at the anvil, look at the tongs, look at the hammer, that's exactly what we've been working to simplify for you with business storytelling. So you can focus on your horseshoe and forging exactly what it is, the stories that you need to create without all that baggage of the entertainment frameworks. And remember, there's a constant flow of new channels and new ways of telling stories. But if you don't have your story straight, none of that matters. Okay, maybe it matters for 5 minutes, you get a bit of traction, and then things start to unravel. Maybe you're the first person on a brand new platform like Clubhouse or TikTok and you get some traction, but then things start to fall away. And if you don't have a good story, it's not going to stick around for very long. And, when I was playing that story interpreter role, I discovered some frameworks that started to give me hope that there might be a way forward on this one. I discovered Paul Smith. I loved his book, Lead with a Story. Really great for the leaders among you, especially entrepreneurs who want to think about how you communicate with storytelling internally with your teams. And I loved his framework, CAR, context, action, results. But it wasn't quite enough. In the end, my realization was quite simple. Stories are like salt. Salt is elemental. Without salt, food is bland. Some people even like it on watermelons, but if you're going to give me a dessert option with salt, I'm going to go for salted caramel every single time. And I wanted to create tools as simple as salt, something that anyone, especially the product marketers and entrepreneurs amongst you, could add to your communication dishes to make everything you do more powerful. And you know what? None of these tools, none of these channels, and none of these features work if they're not tasty. And storytelling as that essential element, just like salt, makes everything tastier. So don't prioritize the channels. Prioritize your story and the storytelling, and then your channels. Now, some of you might be thinking quite astutely, Matthew, yes, but too much salt is a bad thing. Yes, you are right. Exactly right. It is. And you know what? The entertainment frameworks are too much salt for business. They bring too much salt. And to avoid that, I prioritize focusing on a couple of things. Focus on the customer as the hero. That's why we do the persona work. Understand who your customer is, understand who is in the center of that story, and then demonstrate how they overcome challenges, and focus less. If you do nothing else, focus less on your features, because this is all about your customer, your potential customer. Any innovation, any future you dream of is about how you unlock something new for your customers, an experience that they crave and that they want. So we put these tenets at our core, and we use this approach along with those kind of nascent storytelling frameworks that I was working on to create some really great content, from websites to brochures, all sorts of fantastic stuff. And it was awesome work. We even went as far of creating these go-to-market playbooks that I mentioned that included not just the personas, their journeys, and the content models, but also the value propositions, positioning, messaging frameworks, storyboards, reference stories, which are like a reference design, like a reverse case study, if you will, like a fictional case study. And of course, the strategic narrative, the one big story that ties all your stories together. And the cool thing about this work, in particular, the persona work and the journey work, is that's what storytelling is all about. It's about moving people through this. And through this work, I was ultimately able to unlock and figure out how to rewrite storytelling for business. When our clients apply it, they invest in our playbooks, they see real results. A mid-sized IT services firm saw consistency and unity in all their efforts, from their marketing to their sales and even their consulting service delivery. A corporate client saw over 40% increase in registrations for their event series. They blew their metrics out of the water because of this investment, because of this work that they did, focusing on their partner's story in this case. And by the way, we've got some case studies. If you'd like to see them, just shoot me a note and we can share those with you. So another client saw for a campaign, that their landing pages, inbound and search impacts, 3.8 times increase in organic page views, and then over 7x increase in conversions, right? The magic metric, getting people to take that next step. This is the power, getting people to act. This is what we're talking about. Put that entertainment stuff, put those words like story and stuff aside. Just think about engaging people and getting them to move, getting them to act. That's what we're talking about. The whole point of these frameworks, in fact, was to create these useful tools that we could use with anyone, but we just know in our heart of hearts that product marketers and entrepreneurs can use these for absolutely amazing results. Plus, we're using them, and we love using them to help our clients stand out. This is help our clients make their products stand out. This is exactly why we're in this business. And we found the best way to do this through storytelling. And again, it's no surprise, our brains are wired for it. Our society is built on it. And speaking of society, where we live in Seattle, we're surrounded by water. The archipelago of Puget Sound is like 170 islands. And we're always kind of like keeping an eye out for a potential house on one of these islands to fulfill our dream, right? And recently we saw one, so we packed the kids in the car, headed over to the island. And it was so disappointing. Even being a new construction, there's all these issues. You know, I've owned multiple homes. My parents had a 450-year-old farmhouse made out of the same stones as Stonehenge, and it lasted for 450 years. This house that we saw on Vashon Island was not going to last for that long. And it really reminded me about the importance of frameworks, about the importance of foundations, about the importance of simplicity and doing things right, and also practicality and applying repeatedly. One of the reasons people make mistakes when they're building a house, if it's, or they're doing it themselves, is maybe they haven't done it. Maybe they don't have the right tools. Maybe they're not able to repeat things in a consistent way. And that's exactly what I want to help you with. And with the right frameworks for storytelling, you can get your storytelling right. And if you get your storytelling right, then you can improve your engagement across internally and of course externally. And as an entrepreneur, you're trying to rally the team, you're trying to get investors, you're trying to hire the best possible people. As a product marketer, you're trying to get the engineering team engaged and on board. You're trying to get the marketing, the advertising teams on board. You're trying to get the leadership team on board. You're trying to simulate all of these things that your customers doing. Storytelling is the crucible of power for you when it comes to this. Now, no surprise, that house, by the way, sold for 20% less in a market where most houses are selling for 20% more. So it's worthwhile investing in doing a good job. And storytelling communications tool is absolutely the multi-tool to help with this. The good news is, don't need all those social media platforms and channels. Whatever platform you're using, you want to focus on business storytelling, and that's the secret that I'm about to share. In fact, it's 3 secrets. So there's a couple false beliefs that I've heard. The first one is, okay, I get it, storytelling is important, but I don't know how to apply it in business. That's secret number 1. Easy, clear, repeatable hack for you to apply it in business. The second thing that we often hear, even when people start to get this, is I don't understand how to bring emotions in. And that's our second secret. How do you tell compelling stories that resonate with people to get you further down the road of getting them to act? And then the third big thing was, okay, I get it. I really want to do this, but I just can't get that internal alignment. I can't get the people on board. I can't get the management support. And part of the reason why that happens is the inability to connect the stories you're telling deeply to the business. And that's secret number 3, a way of building that alignment internally, getting you the support you need by making sure all the stories you tell are deeply connected to your business. We want to get as far away from any of those accusations of fluff around storytelling as possible. This is a practical tool, just like a hammer, just like an anvil, just like those tongs. This is something that you can pick up and you can start using immediately. After this presentation today, we've got to give you these three frameworks, and you are going to be able to go and apply them. And of course, let us know and we can come and help you as well. So let's talk about that secret number 1. Now, remember, this isn't entertainment storytelling. We're not looking at entertainment storytelling here. This is about business storytelling. And remember, I couldn't find any how-tos of just applying this. None of those wheels that I found were rolling for that repeatable application. And the ones that I found were just using too much salt to try and apply to business, those entertainment structures, right? And I knew that if I could forge a simple framework, it could become that blueprint, that framework, that blueprint, if you will, for you to be able to go and use this. And so the good news is that you don't have to go through all these steps. I've unlocked this for you, and I'm handing this to you today. Now, I did want to make sure that we retained that excitement, the interest, the entertaining aspect of the entertainment frameworks without being entertainment frameworks. And so, if you want to be able to hold the world in your hands, the right framework can really help you do that, right? If you have some guardrails, you have a consistency. Think of music. There's 12 notes on a scale, but look at all the different songs that are out there, right? There's 5 primary colors, but look at all the wonderful art that exists in the world. Stories define our world. And when you're in control of your company's story, that's when you have the world in your hands, even if you don't think you're a natural born storyteller, right? So it's a communications multi-tool for internal alignment, pitching your ideas to your boss, exploring product strategy, crafting product positioning, even defining the strategic narrative for your entire company. And of course, feeding into your campaigns and messaging and becoming a tool for that. It really is one of the most essential tools that you'll ever find in business. Now, of course, Campbell and Snyder wanted to help filmmakers and authors do better jobs of telling entertainment stories. I want to help you do that in business. And that's why I've invested all of this time in doing this. And it's not just because I love it, but because I've seen the impact it can have. And I want you to be able to tap into that as well. So are you ready for the first framework? We've got it. Okay, here it is. The 3D story framework. It is a practical and straightforward framework, the simplest storytelling framework on the planet. And no, beginning, middle, and end is not a useful framework. Beginning, well, yeah, that's the beginning of it. Middle, I do something in the beginning. End, wrap it up somehow. Like, there's no guidance in there. And then it's a big jump. You're like, before you know it, you're at the 17-step monomyth, right? The 3D framework helps you see your story from all angles. And we'll talk about the details of what that is in just a second. I drew great inspiration from Nike's Just Do It. They pack so much into those words. I'm a swimmer, not a very good one. I went swimming this morning. So when I hear Just Do It, I think about getting up off the sofa, getting out of the house in the morning and going having a swim. When Michael Phelps in his heyday heard Just Do It, he was thinking about how he can optimize his physique to get that 28th gold medal or whatever it was. What we're doing in these cases, both Michael Phelps and myself, which is pretty much probably the only thing we've got in common at this point, is to put ourselves in the Just Do It story. And that's what I want you to be able to do with a 3D framework, is to put your customer at the center. So those 3 words, what do they mean? Desire. People want something. What do you want? What do you want right now? What do you want today? What do you want to get done today? People want something. Then things stand in the way, okay? If you don't immediately get what you want, we have to work for things, and that working means navigating around stuff that's in our way, okay? And then how do we untangle that knot? What are the processes, the approaches that we use, the products, the services, the ISO 27001? What was it that you used to untangle that knot? And that's what desire, difficulty, denouement means. And it's a fancy French word, I know, but it means the untangling of the knot. And being a massive metaphor junkie, I just couldn't resist that. And that's what the 3D framework is. So there you go. Tonight at the dinner table or on the phone with your best friend, tell a story about your day. Practice this. What did you want? Maybe you were trying to get somewhere. What stood in your way? Was it time? Was it a roadblock? Was it a bridge being closed? And then how did you untangle that knot? Try it out, and it's the simplest framework to get going. Now, we can help you go a lot deeper on this stuff, but you've got to start somewhere, and I want you to be able to grab it and run with it. And so I'm giving this to you today to be able to go and do that. Now, in my story journey, I've discovered the importance of contrast, change, and transformation. And I know that every business is all about transformation and helping customers to transform. And if people can easily understand the why and how of another's solution to a transformation, they could be persuaded to follow the same path, and that path is to purchase from you. Now, we designed this 3D story framework to be deceptively simple, just like the Nike's Just Do It tagline. And from all those years as a story interpreter in business, I knew that if you pulled on the right threads, you could get everything you needed to tell a good story. And the 3D story structure even has that from a sequential perspective. What do they want? What's in the way? How do they untangle the knot? Like I mentioned, we have some other frameworks. You can go even further with this, where we've mashed up Aristotle and some work from the South Park crew and a guy called Randy Olson who took that and kind of doubled down on it. So there's ways you can go deeper on this stuff, but you can start somewhere, and you don't have to go deep if you don't want to. You start using this framework today. And it should become as no surprise. We use that framework. We use it internally. We use it literally when we're prepping for a sales call or when we're prepping for a client workshop. We'll use that to break down the problem, start to think about and understand what it is that we're working on. And of course, we use it for our client work. Here's an example of a website that we did, a landing page that we did. We developed the narrative for this particular campaign and the copy for the website itself. And it uses this framework. You can see it right here. And it can be used as a tool as well to understand your customers, understand your positionings, or working as a product marketer to figure out what it is a customer wants and looking at these potential features. What do they want? What stands in their way? How could they untangle that? Do any of these features help them untangle that? So you can use it for that too. And of course, it's got other uses, but none of those uses rely on the baggage of entertainment frameworks. Now, it might be true that some people, that we're all natural born storytellers, but applying it in business is a bit tricky, and it is a skill that you'll need to practice, but you can start doing that today, and you can start using the 3D framework. And we've got a few other surprises for you as well if you stick around. But practice is going to help. But the simpler the tool, the easier it's going to be to use, right? Anybody can pick up that screwdriver and be told, my children know how to unscrew a simple thing now, right? You can go a lot further with more complicated tools, but you've got to start somewhere. And that screwdriver is super useful. You wouldn't want to be without it if you were trying to do anything from fixing a faucet to replacing a battery in your remote controlled toy. So super useful. The 3D framework is a tool for you there. And with that framework, it's an easy on-ramp to understanding storytelling and applying storytelling in business. And I just love the fact that it's so simple. There's stuff under the surface, right? And that's great. And you can go deeper and deeper. but you're not going to go deeper in business storytelling if you get scared off by entertainment storytelling, right? So, okay, fantastic. Secret number 2, you're starting to riff out some stories. You took my homework for you and you told the story tonight, or on the phone to your friend or around the dinner table, and then you start to think, how can I bring the emotion, how can I bring some intentional emotion into this? And so my second challenge is tell a story at work and think about how can I make that engaging. That's exactly what we're going to talk about now. And of course, getting customers engaged means that more likely to buy from us. And I want you to feel confident in the head and the heart aspects of story, because they are hand in glove. They're part and parcel of the same thing. The story, the data, these things, without the data, the story is fluffy. With just data, facts and figures, it's not engaging, right? So you need these two things together. And but help, how do I get going on this? How do I bring emotions into business? Like angry, sad, happy, like sort of surface level emotions. I experienced this as my time as a story interpreter, even after founding Go Narrative. And in fact, the framework that I'm going to share with you actually just developed last year. It's one of our newer frameworks. But I was already applying it. I was already drawing out the emotions, right? We're practicing what we preach, and then we're creating these frameworks so that you can then take it and run with it. I remember our first strategic narrative, and we had this beautiful metaphor of an eagle soaring based on the passions of the founder of the company. And I was on tenterhooks as I revealed it. And they loved it, luckily, right? I was so worried, but I was doing that implicitly. What if I had a tool to do this explicitly, right? So I was lucky enough in my grandmother's twilight years that she actually lived in the same village as my parents, in that 450-year-old farmhouse that I mentioned. And because she lived there, I was lucky enough I got to see her when I went back from university to visit my parents. And I remember this one time that I was visiting my gran, just before I went to see my mum and dad. And I was bemoaning the fact that I struggled at university. Maybe it was my ADHD, maybe it was my dyslexia. Either way, I found it tough. And so I was having a cup of tea with my gran. Ain't no party like my nana's tea party. Hey, ho, Flight of the Conchords fans in the audience? No? In the US, it's available on HBO. I strongly recommend that you watch Flight of the Conchords, and you'll notice some folks in Flight of the Conchords that have been in a whole bunch of other stuff. Super funny show. This is from that show. And so my gran said to me, Matthew, if degrees were easy, they would just hand them out after A-levels, kind of the last couple of years of high school equivalent. And I was like, she's right. And it reminded me of that Forge story. And no, I didn't spill the beans to my mum's mum. This is Gran I'm talking about. But she's right. Nothing worth anything in life is easy. But if I can create the anvil, if I can create the hammer for you, then you can then go and you can focus on doing the job at hand. And those entertainment storytelling frameworks are just too complex, too detailed. And you can try use them to draw emotion out, but you get kind of this complexity can kind of hamper you. And remember those 5 notes and 12 notes and 5 primary colors example. You don't need complex frameworks, and you're going to end up feeling trapped in those frameworks if you try and learn them and you don't want to become an expert. Look, seriously, if your hobby is theater and you want to learn theater and you're a product marketer in your day job, by all means, go and learn Joseph Campbell's monomyth. I'm not stopping you doing that, but most people aren't you, right? So if, on the other hand, you are somebody that doesn't have those as a hobby, you're going to feel constrained if you try and learn from those things. So I mentioned last year, right? We're all trying to keep calm and carry on as COVID ravaged everything. And many companies at the time were really concerned, right? Back in February, March, how are we coming across, right? Most companies shut down their communication, wanted to make sure that we're having empathy, right? And this really got me thinking about how we could help our clients bring that emotional focus in a repeatable manner. Now, it's something, like I said, we do that as a part of our processes, like when we're creating a strategic narrative for a client, but I wanted to come up with a way that you could use it on a daily basis. And, emotions are important, right? So speaking of which, our family love Star Wars in all its forms, including the prequels. Okay, we'll talk about that offline if you want, but I love all the Star Wars. My kids love them. We've got more Star Wars Lego than you can shake a stick at, and I'm frequently standing on it, of course, myself. I've even met George Lucas twice, but that's another story. If you want to hear it, hit me up afterwards. And I remember reading an article about the battles, the lightsaber battles in Star Wars, and how the actors would train, and you kind of see the green screen shots, right? For most of them, it was completely alien, brand new from the ground up. But for Christopher Lee, who played Count Dooku in the prequels, he had been doing sword fighting in film since before some of us were born. Here he is in the Three Musketeers, okay? And so he took that art and that style that he had, and he applied it to his character in Star Wars. And that's a good example of the mix of the science and the art of something. It's not just about parry, block, and slice, right? There's an emotion, there's character to that, just like Christopher Lee brought. So, to breathe life into a story, you've got to infuse that science and that technique with art and emotion. And the place to start is by asking, that transformation that you're looking at in the market, or that you're trying to serve, how is that affecting? What emotions might your customer be having because they've got to deal with that? It's a great place to start. Of course, the good news is that we've created a framework so that you can meet your customers where they are emotionally. And I'm about to reveal it. You ready for it? Okay. And we call it the story meet method. If you understand what moves people to act, you can craft messaging that results in action, even that internal messaging, right? When you're trying to get somebody to buy in on your idea. So what does this stand for? It stands for morals, essential emotions, and truths. Morals, you can also think of values in there, right? How are people, what are their guardrails for what is right, what is wrong, what they should be doing, how they should be approaching things. Essential emotions, the feelings that exist for your business, your clients around a topic. And the truth, things are just a certain way sometimes. When you understand these, you're starting to focus on what the emotional state is of your customers, which of course you can go and research and get the data for, but at least going through that exercise, at least doing some informal research, searching on the web and understanding what are the challenges that people exist because of this enforced transformation. Now, the story meet method is also a iceberg hack, and there's a whole bunch under the surface, as you can imagine. But I'm confident if you start pulling on the threads here, the complex cardigan of emotions is going to unravel in no time, and you'll be able to pull those and put those into your stories. Emotions result in empathy, and empathy drives engagement. And so having this kind of focus is going to be super helpful and a really, really good tool for you. And how do we feel with this? Well, I can tell you how we feel when we get this type of quote from Hannah at Ann Plus. It lights us up. We have the emotion. We feel successful because we've helped somebody else be successful. Emotions are everywhere in business. Now, remember I told you about how we've got this framework for connecting deeply to the business, right? So we've got the storytelling, we've got the emotion in the storytelling. Okay, Matthew, tell some stories. I need to make sure that these are deeply connected to my business. And quite frankly, I'm never going to get anybody on board with my ideas anyway if I can't demonstrate that. So how do I do that? Now, if you've ever tried to kind of figure out storytelling to use it in business, like I started doing back in 2012 when I started formally getting into this, you're going to find that there's precious little out there, and let alone content with stories. Seriously, fire up a window right now. Google storytelling, open a new tab, Google storytelling, and hit I'm lucky. Okay, don't read the article now because I want you to pay attention to the stuff I'm going to share with you, but save it for later. You'll probably find this HubSpot article. Not to throw HubSpot under the bus. When you read it later, you'll realize and notice a few things. There's no stories. It's not story structured. There's not even really any stories peppered in throughout it. So you're probably realizing why I'm on this mission. I want you to be people to be able to search for that and find tools that they can use, and hopefully they'll find ours because we know how simple and useful they are. Remember, the power of story goes far, far beyond just telling, the storytelling, right? It's about understanding and then creating your future. I remember back in January of 2017, as I was founding the company, sitting with my wife on the sofa, talking about the name, and we landed on this Go narrative, right? Go, all about action, right? And driving things forward, right? Helping people sell more and be more profitable, right? And whilst the 3D story framework helps with crafting a story and the meat method helps with the emotions, how do you make sure all those stories are aligned, right? And so, and what is bigger than just one story? And that's what narrative is. It's not just about storytelling, right? And it's not just about the telling. It's not just about storytelling. It's not just about story. It's about the big story, or it's about that big picture. It's about the big picture, and that big picture, big story is a narrative. And when you figure that out, you have a golden thread that ties through everything. And you can understand, how do I figure out the right story to tell against all these potential stories I could tell? Remember, just like all the channels out there, right? There's all the potential stories you could tell. You want to get to the right story as quickly as possible. So I hope you're starting to see that businesses have different needs around storytelling than entertainment storytelling. And we need to go further than just sprinkling storytelling along into business, right? And then, of course, too much salt is going to make things taste pretty bad, but also you can kind of taste the curse of knowledge coming in as well, right? So, and most of you are just too simple. I'm too simple. Most of you are too busy to apply these frameworks. You want a simple framework that you can apply, that you can pull out. And so we've talked about a couple already. What about a simple framework to connect deeply to the business? How do you even start? Where do you go? Like, how do I create a narrative for my business, right? And this is where the storytelling paradox manifests, where it's not just storytelling, but the driving force behind storytelling being how our brain works and how we work to get ahead and along in society, as Will Storr in The Science of Storytelling says. It's a driving force. And remember, it's so natural that we use it every day, just like salt, okay? But when we try and apply it, we can make a huge mess of it. We pull entertainment storytelling off the shelf and we try to use that. I want to help you get out of the jar, to see the big picture. Because when you do that, I know that you're going to be able to create a strategic narrative, or at least get the pieces together to organize your strategic narrative. Let's talk about narrative for a little second. So think of your favorite movie, right? There's actually multiple stories in it. And there's a big story of the whole movie, and that's the narrative of the story. And there's often a metaphor that encapsulates it all together, or in the film industry, kind of log line they might talk about as well. So something that kind of ties it all together. So I recently read The Wizard of Oz to my children. I'm reading the second book. In fact, there's 16 books in the Oz series. After writing the first one, Baum got all these letters from children who wanted more. But anyway, Wizard of Oz. The narrative there is actually that you have inside you what you need all along. Most clearly demonstrated by the lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow, right? They wanted things that actually turned out to be the things that they were passionate and capable of. The lion wanted courage, but he was the one defending the crew. The Tin Man wanted a heart, but he was the one being compassionate. The Scarecrow wanted brains, but he was the one solving all the problems. And Dorothy just wanted to get home. And the movie might make you think that she was there all along, but she had the ingenuity and the perseverance to move ahead. And that's what the yellow brick road represents, that perseverance to move ahead and having a center, being centered, having that golden core, having that golden thread. And that's exactly what a narrative does. Now, at the risk of mixing metaphors, golden threads, and yellow brick roads, let's talk about bricks for a second. Think about a brick wall. You never see a brick wall just as a thin piece of fired clay, and you don't, because it would be weak, it would break, it would crumble under the weight of the building. But when you break up, make small pieces and connect them with mortar, because of the way the forces are working, it actually makes it super strong. Your narrative is like mortar that ties everything together. And in business, you've got things like, how is the world changing? What are the stories that people are telling? What are the trends, the facts, the opportunities? You look to your customers, look to your employees, look to your partners, look to your founders. How does what you're doing relate to that changing world? The facts, the hopes, and the dreams of your customers. Remember the emotions, right? And you see the connection in there. And all of that against the backdrop of a transformation that's going on in the world. Now, of course, again, the problem with this paradox is people end up just using it for entertainment, maybe the occasional presentation, but they don't recognize or realize how powerful a tool this is for problem solving and communication in business, especially for product marketers and entrepreneurs. And you know what? I love this quote from Ben Horowitz because it's so true. In good companies, the story and the strategy are the same thing. So if you don't have a story, arguably, do you have a strategy? Now, you may well have one implicitly, but are you being intentional? And over time, are you keeping control of it? So this is why it's important to have a framework that you can pursue here. And that's what I was able to uncover, a way of deeply connecting your stories to your business and also having it pursue the success and the transformation that you're trying to help your customers go through. Okay, you ready for it? This is our big dog framework, and I love it to bits. It's our TRIPS storytelling methodology, and it stands for transformation, that first letter. What change is going on in the world? How is that affecting companies, countries, your customers, right? Reasons to believe. Show me a trend, show me a fact, show me some data in the head to help support that. But also tell me a story, show me some heart, show me some aspiration that your customers want. What is this promised land that they want to get to? Those are your reasons to believe. Then out of all this stuff you do, what's special? What's your innovation? For Amazon, for example, it was customer service. It's just, no questions asked returns, right? Just best possible customer service. Many things that you could focus on, but you pick one thing, and what is that? And how is that innovation helping with that transformation? And make sure that you pick the innovation that helps with the transformation, okay? And by doing that, you're going to be aligned on the transformation and thus how that transformation is affecting your customers. And of course, we have a transformation, things change, it causes us problems, and then we try and deal with it, and there's problems getting going, and then we start going through the process, and there's problems that crop up along the way. What are those? And then S is stories. Find stories to tell about those problems. Maybe there's a case study. Innovation, maybe it's a founder's story. Reasons to believe, maybe there's stories in the market that you can find and share and use and understand. And then transformation, what is that transformation? What is that big picture story that's happening in the market? Now, like I said, you might have a strategy and an implicit story, but you are just rolling the dice if you do that. You no longer have to, because now you have the framework to be intentional and repeatable about this every single time. And when you craft narratives with a TRIPS storytelling methodology, you're going to frame your strategy and transformation in how it relates to your customers, how it relates to your market, and you'll harvest the proper insights and information to tell the right stories. You'll have that golden thread to tie it all together. Then use our 3D story framework to tell the stories, and MEAT framework to make sure that those stories have got heart and soul to them as well. Now, TRIPS storytelling is our North Star for outside in focus. We actually use it to analyze our customers almost like an X-ray as we're getting to know them, as we're kicking off, as we're building a strategic narrative for them. And these narrative metaphors, along with that foundation, they become the one ring to rule them all. Remember the Lord of the Rings I shared at the beginning, right? And the golden thread, a bit of a metaphor, a bit of an analogy here. But this is it. This is a strategic narrative that we developed for a client, and it's that foundation. It's the one ring that binds everything together. Now, after we started applying these frameworks, we saw deals 10x in the size. Seriously, engagements included multiple storytelling assets, the go-to-market playbook, and I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled. But I'm even more thrilled that my journey with storytelling through entertainment stories, through brain science and societal stuff, right, which I'm still learning about. There's so much out there, right? And the science is still developing as well. I learned that storytelling wasn't just the telling, right? Or even just the being a way of being interesting and engaging. I learned that it's a process. It's fundamentally linked to how our brain works and how we see the world and how we get along in the world. And I also learned how to align those narratives to business. And this is what you'll use here. This is your tool. The TRIPS storytelling methodology is a way to make sure you deeply align to your business. What is your business? It's your people, it's your innovation, your products, and it's your market and how you engage with that market. It's your place in the world. That's your business. Your business isn't just its own entity. It's separate from the world. It's connected to the world. And the TRIPS storytelling methodology will help you draw out and clarify what those connections are so you can use those in your storytelling. Now you've got the secret to unlock business storytelling success, and it's on this energy that you can engineer large scale change. Now, let me ask you a question. If you had that first framework and you start using that, start telling stories, and use the second framework to inject emotion and passion into your stories, and then you took our TRIPS storytelling methodology and you applied that, and your stories and everything, all your content was deeply aligned to your product, your company, your strategy, your customers, the market, do you think you might be able to have more success, drive more, work with the sales teams to drive more sales into the pipe, and then work with your outbound team, I should say, to drive more leads into the pipe, work with your sales team to help accelerate the deals through the pipe? And as a product marketer, you know that you're sitting and touching and connecting into all of these things. And obviously as an entrepreneur, you own all of that. So that's why we love this stuff. So how many of you are excited now? Go and apply this. Fantastic. But even better than that, right? How many of you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, right? In just 1 hour, right? What can we truly cover? I had presentation skills training once that said you can't communicate everything at once. You just got to communicate next steps. So what are those next steps I want you to remember today, apart from those little bits of homework? Well, the next step is, here it is, storytelling for action. This is it. We've got a kit. We've put the kit together. We're just getting ready to launch it. We've got the kit. We're just putting the dotting some I's and crossing the T's, but we want to give you early access to it. And you can do that by signing up here. We have got over 100 pages, over 14 how-to flows, over 300 hacks on storytelling for business. Here's a little bit of a sneak peek of some of the content, the worksheets, everything in here is very, very practical. And you can then take the findings that you get by using the frameworks, and we've provided the flow. Here's our guidance on how to create a strategic narrative. This is what we do for our clients every single day. And then sign up, and you will get early. You'll be the first to know about it. You'll get a bonus. You'll get our weekly storytelling newsletter with business storytelling tips and tricks. You'll learn how to apply it. We'll have that course that you can take. There's the templates and a clinic, so you can contact us and have those questions answered. We're thinking Slack is the right one for that. It's one of the final I-dotting that we're doing. We've been looking at a couple, including Telegram and Discord. Slack looks like it could be a good one. So let us know what you think about that. And of course, we've got included a bonus as well, which is a customer advocacy kit, which is a how to create a customer advocacy program, references, case studies, and customer showcase as well, how to create that, because of course customer storytelling is a big part of the storytelling that we're all doing. Right, thank you so much. It's been a whistle stop hour, absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining. Stick around, we'll have some questions, and we come back pretty much weekly, although I think next week we're doing a collaboration with Christopher Trapp, another business storytelling, what's the best word I can think of for that one? I don't want to use a war analogy like a soldier or something like that. Kind of feel like we're all Sherpas, aren't we? We're all helping. He's another business storytelling Sherpa. We're all helping you along the way with business storytelling. And so I think next week we'll be collaborating with him. But we come back, we do this show on Wednesdays, so you can come and you can get a refresher, or you can come and get a reminder on those frameworks. And of course, it's absolutely complimentary. You just join each week, and come back prepared with your questions, and we can answer some of those as well. So we've got a couple of questions here. Let's have a look. Why do you always bang on about entertainment frameworks if you say it's not about entertainment frameworks? It's a metaphor and it's a bridge to understanding, right? But I hope it's also really clear that what we've got, especially with the 3D story framework, is a lot simpler. You can go tell stories using that right now. Boom. Now, the trip storytelling was a bit more nuanced, a bit more detail on that. But come on, we're talking about building the narrative for your business there. So there's a little bit more complexity, but 17 steps through the whole of the hero's journey. We don't have that. And also we like to layer things as well, right? Make it so you can start with that tip of the iceberg and then you can start to go a bit deeper. So great question though. Okay. Another great question. Difference between transformation and change. when I talk about transformation, I kind of talk about the big picture, change being how that's imposed on individuals, companies, teams, that kind of stuff. Okay. Let's see, I've got time for one more here. What's the biggest mistake people make? Well, there's two, right? Not understanding storytelling enough to actually use it, right? I mean, the screwdrivers is like the first time I used a screwdriver. I remember with my youngest, like trying to show him how to use it, get the right screwdriver, hold it in. So there's some stuff you have to learn, but just understanding the basics with a model like the 3D model will help you with that. And so, not understanding what storytelling truly is and trying to use entertainment storytelling, that's sin number one. And number two is trying to use entertainment story structures, getting lost, getting put off, right? And then not benefiting from that tool, from that skill. And I want you to benefit from it. So anyway, brilliant. Thank you for those questions. Excellent. And so sign up, gonarrative.com/SFA, stands for Storytelling for Action. And you'll be the first to hear about Storytelling for Action when it launches, and super excited to continue the conversation with you, whether it's back here next week or if you want to find some time and have a private conversation one-on-one as well. You can find the links on the website to do all that stuff. So have a great day. Speak to you soon. And thank you for stopping by.